Hello, my beautiful friends. So today I want to talk about the best setup and equipment for multi-person podcasts. Let's talk about that. Now, podcasting is becoming increasingly popular, and part of that popularity is the fact that you are able to interview experts in your field. Now, it's so very important that when you're building out a podcast, you look at your audience and also you look at the area and the field that you're going into and like, who can I get on my podcast that will add so much value that people will just have to listen? And so you'll end up with maybe yourself as a host, maybe a co-host, and then also a guest. And I've seen, 4 or 5 people contribute to a podcast at any one time. It can get a little bit mucky if you go above about 4 people talking at the same time. But today we'll have a look at, let's say, more than 2 people. I have been running a podcast, Publish, Perish or Podcast, a podcast for early career researchers and PhD students for about nearly 4 years. And so we have a maximum of about 4 guests. Now, all of the other videos that I see are like, you have to buy these awesomely expensive things. You really don't. And I'll show you how I've gotten around a few of the difficulties that come with multi-person podcasts in a cheap and effective manner. All right, let's talk about all these things. Okay, the first thing you need to think about is the portable recorder. Now, some people record straight into their laptop with USB microphones, and that's fine. The important thing about recording a multi-person podcast is that you are able to separate out the voices so they are each on their own track. And that is important when you come to editing, because if someone coughs, or if someone says something, or if, you want to limit the volume in one person's microphone, then you can do that in post-editing. If you do not record every single person on their own track, you are going to have a horrible time when it comes to editing. Because you need to balance their levels, you need to change the EQ for people's voices. We've got a person on Publish, Perish or Podcast that has an incredibly boomy voice, and that is no good. So you need to make sure that you are recording into a multi-track recorder, and the cheapest way and the best way that I found to do it is a portable recorder. I'm actually using this right now to record this video. So the Zoom H4n is what I have used in the past. You may be wondering that the Zoom H4n only has 2 XLR inputs. So XLR are the typical microphone connections. And you'd be right, it only has 2. However, there is a little trick with a very inexpensive accessory, which is this. You can turn a 2 XLR input You can turn a cheap portable recorder into a 4-person input recorder. Okay, the way you do that is you set up multi-track. That gives you 4 mono channels on your Zoom H4n recorder. So that means mono is that it's the same in both ears. It's not stereo, like different recordings for each ear. And so you've got 2 in the bottom, and this is a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack that fits perfectly into the connector at the top. So you can't see that. That goes in there. So you can actually get 2 more channels, a left channel and a right channel, into the portable recorder. That way you've got 2 coming in the top. So these 2, and 2 right at the bottom. You can see 1 is this mic where I'm recording right now. And so yes, this is a really inexpensive way to include multiple channels and tracks in your podcast. I will say this, however, that if you are always going to be using up to about 4 voices or 4 guests, you probably want a dedicated XLR input, and there's other portable recorders that have up to 4. However, in our case, it was mainly 2 or 3 people and then expanded to 4 when we had guests. And so I think this cost me like, $20 if that. This was a really cheap and efficient way of getting extra people into that portable recorder. All right, The portable recorder is the most important part in all of this, and I recommend you spend a fair bit of time working out exactly what you need and the best portable recorder for that. And if your budget doesn't stretch to the fancy one with 4 inputs, you can check to see if it's got a stereo 3.5mm jack. Then you can buy a simple adapter like I showed you to get those extra 2 inputs into the portable recorder. That's what we've been doing for years and it works perfectly. Okay, the next thing are microphones. I've used 2 types of microphones. Your standard vocal microphone. There is nothing fancy. I think this is the cheapest one I could find. It's a Ashton DM100. Now, most people will say that this is rubbish, but for your initial simple podcasting kind of adventure, it is exactly what you need. Don't go investing in massively expensive microphones until you know you need them. There are some really expensive ones and they sound so beautiful, but this will get you going perfectly. XLR goes straight into the recorder, works brilliantly. I've actually produced a podcast for MIT, the Undark podcast, and as a kind of like a guest submission, and I used this microphone and there was no issues from the producer at all. So you can use something simple like this. If you want something a bit fancier with XLR, so your typical microphone input or output, as well as USB capabilities, this is the cheapest one I found and it is brilliant. It is the Audio-Technica ATR2100 USB. So you've got XLR input, you've got USB input, and you can also get headphones out so you can listen to your to what's actually being recorded, which is brilliant. And the great thing, I love the flexibility. I only ever really use this podcast mic as an XLR input into the recorder, but I have used this once or twice as a USB microphone and it's brilliant. So make sure you've got 1 microphone per person, and importantly is try to balance up the quality. You don't want one awesome mic and then the rest of them being really bad. If you are going to get 4 people on a podcast, please make sure all of their microphones are of equivalent quality, even if that's cheap. It's better to have 4 people with cheap microphones than 1 person with an obviously rich voice and low noise. So yeah, microphones, 1 per person. Okay, the next thing, windshields. I have trialed a couple of windshields. This one is super cheap, Dragon Pad pop filters. So this just means that your voice doesn't pop with the P's, the B's, the T's, the plosives as they're known. And so, yeah, this is fine. Now, the issue with this is, as you can see, you can't really see my face. And when you're interviewing guests or when you have guests that haven't really been on podcasts before, it can be a little bit weird to see people like this. So even though this is cheap and it's awesome, I actually end up using a simple microphone foam cover. Now, this is for the Movo for the Zoom H4n, but a simple foam cover works perfectly. And I have just as much protection over the plosives with this than I do, probably even a little bit more than I do with the plosive, the pop filter. So yeah, I love this. It's really great, but I prefer this. So windshields and pop filters is exactly what you need for your podcast. You need 1 per person. And it doesn't matter. I mix and match these all the time. They do the same thing. So don't worry about getting multiple types of pop filters on windshields. Okay, stands and clamps. Stands and clamps. Stand. Now, this one comes with a load of microphones, super cheap, but it's really simple, right? It just stands there and then the microphone clip goes on top and holds the microphone at your face. Cheap, horrible, but better than nothing. So what I recommend is for each person, you actually get a proper microphone stand with a nice big arm so that you can get it to their face. So this has this which controls the angle, and it has an arm which means that I can set it far away and have it booming into my mouth. It just means that, yeah, things are out of the way. It makes it convenient. And also everyone sits at different kind of heights. And so having a table with just this on it makes it quite awkward. And some people are hunched and some people are stretched. Whereas having cheap microphone stands with an arm that comes in just means they can move it up and down towards their face. So for multiple person podcasting, don't rely on the table stands. Have a look for proper microphone stands. That's what I recommend. Okay, accessories. These are the little known things. Not everyone talks about the non-glamorous accessories. Firstly, batteries, rechargeable batteries for your portable recorder. Always have a set of quality rechargeable batteries in your bag ready to swap it out. This portable recorder with phantom power on will last for probably 4 or 5 hours, but it has sort of cut out of power maybe once. And that's a little bit of embarrassing, but I had backup batteries and that's all that matters. So carry batteries. Okay, a memory card. Make sure you have a great memory card. The great thing is audio doesn't take up much space. So you don't need like a super extreme or fast memory card like you would with video or 4K footage. So a cheap 16 gigabyte memory card is all you need, and that's 8 hours of multi-track recording. So I've never, we've had 4 or 5 podcasts on there at any one time and it's been no issue whatsoever. So don't feel like you've got to get an awesome memory card. Just get one that allows you enough recording time. Even 8 gigabytes would be more than enough unless you want to talk for a whole month. And the last thing that I think people should really consider is a good set of headphones. These are the Sennheiser HD215. I've had these for years, but importantly, these are good enough to show me everything that's wrong with my recording. When I listen to this room with these on, it's echoey, right? But when I listen to it through cheap headphones or my speakers, I don't hear the echo so much. So get headphones that make you sound bad. And I mean that because when you're editing and you're doing the fine tweaks, you need to understand what those tweaks are doing, and good headphones will tell you everything you need to know about that audio. And so when I make it sound good through here, it sounds amazing when it comes through other stuff. So a good set of headphones. Now, you don't need a headphone set for every single person that's recording. I know it's ideal, I know it's better, but we actually don't record with headphones on. And that's because you would need a headphone splitter so that everyone hears their voice separately and not just their line or the kind of common line. So it can get expensive if everyone's having their own headphone during recording. You don't need that. So use this. If you're the producer, use this to check everyone's levels, make sure it's not too echoey, blah, 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 all the normal stuff. Give people the opportunity to practice and feel confident, and then take these off and just talk normally. I know it's not the perfect way to do it, but it's much less expensive than buying 4 people a set of these, which was about $200 and something when I bought them for myself a few years ago. So yeah, that is all of the podcast equipment you need for a multi-person podcast. Let me know in the comments what I've missed. And yeah, make sure your audio recorder can record on separate tracks. I've seen people use a multi-track recorder and actually just put everything on the single track. And when you come to record it, you can't balance people's voices. It's just a nightmare. So that's the biggest takeaway from this video. All right, then, that's it. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe because I talk about everything PhD careers, my PhD to content marketing and content creation journey, as well as tools, tips for content creation, podcast videos, vlogs, the lot of it. So yeah, I want to share all of that knowledge with you. Let me know in the comments what you would add to the list today, and I shall see you in the next video.